This episode of The Edge is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek.fm at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the nonprofit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode, join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're listening to Trek FM.
What have you done out there on the edge of Federation space?
Hello and welcome to The Edge. We're coming to you live from, well, a few different places around the country on this Monday night. I'm Mike. I'm your host for the evening, but I'm joined by two very special guests. Brandi. How's it going, Brandi?
I am very well, Mike, and glad to be here. Thank you.
And Bruce. How's it going, Bruce?
It's going well. I'm just sitting here dealing with Tropical Storm Irma, and it's fantastic to be sitting here doing a podcast to get my mind off of it.
Well, that's good. That's good. Anything that can distract from terrible weather is a good thing, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
And if for some reason I drop off, there's a reason why.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind. Yeah, we're doing something a little bit different today. We're doing a live show, and what we're going to be talking about is the very first episode of the Orville, which premiered last night here in the U.S. And yeah, we're gonna sort of just go through the episode and see what's what. If you're watching this live on YouTube, feel free to tweet us your thoughts at Trek FM, and we will read them on the air and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm gonna hand it over to the two of you and just kind of sit back and see what's happening on Twitter. So take it away, guys.
All right. Well, The Orville Episode 1 premiered last night, and I watched it with my husband. And I assume, Bruce, you probably made your wife sit through it.
I did not.
Oh, you didn't?
No. Well, I wanted her to see it, but so we are in Atlanta, and as I mentioned, we have Irma approaching. So she was running around the house, like preparing for the storm in case something were to happen. And so I said, well, and I helped her, and I said, really, I got to go watch the Orville right now. But she did come in the room a couple of times. It got me out of doing work around the house, which is really cool. But she came in the room a couple of times and watched a few minutes. But no, she didn't get to see it yet.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, shall we start with a show breakdown then?
Sure.
Okay, so we're basically just going to go scene by scene and talk about what we think. So it starts off with our main character, Ed, coming home to find his wife, Kelly, in bed with an alien. And I have to admit, I did laugh when he had the blue fluid that came out of his forehead orifices.
I did too.
It was so unexpected.
that was the first laugh for me.
Yeah, I was giggling for a little while to the point where I missed some of the dialogue, but it really was mostly just her trying to explain and him saying, nope, there's nothing to say, and leaving. And so that's an interesting way to start a show. Not what I expected, but that's okay. I was really happy to see Adrianne Palicki. I love Adrianne Palicki, and I think that she really just... she brings life to everything that she does when she's given the right material, because she had a really good run on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I really, really loved her on that. So basically, that's how our show starts, and then we kind of shift forward, and suddenly it's a year later, and Ed is getting promoted to captain and being given a ship called the Orville. And the Orville isn't a huge ship, but Ed doesn't seem to care. He's just really excited that anyone will give him a command after his behavior during the last year.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, as you mentioned, he's given the ship the Orville. We never get an explanation why the ship is called Orville. I mean, I guess we don't get an explanation why the ship in Star Trek's called Enterprise, but I'm just curious why they call
Mike's
it
raising his hand. Mike knows.
See, this is why Mike's
knows.
here.
I read an interview with Seth MacFarlane where he was talking about how when he was writing the script, he was reading a book about the Wright brothers.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, he was inspired by that, so he decided to name the ship the Orville.
So there's
and I think there isn't there a little Kitty Hawk plane? What was it called? What was the name of the plane? The Kitty Hawk was the
I thought
town,
it was the
right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever. That plane that flew.
I could look it up, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, Kitty Hawk. Yes,
I'm pretty sure that was sitting on his desk in his ready room, if I'm not mistaken.
You could very well be right. It's one of those things I would have to rewatch to be sure. So yeah, and then Victor Garber with a guest role. Again, love Victor Garber. I'll watch pretty much anything that guy's in. The first
my
time
daughter. I'm sorry. My daughter walked right in the room when he was on. She's like, "Is he on everything now?"
Yes, he is. But this time it was only a guest role. He may recur, I don't know, but he's going to be busy on DC's Legends of Tomorrow when that starts up again. So, he doesn't really have time to do 2 shows at the moment. But I enjoyed that, and we kind of get a little idea of what the last year has been like for Ed. But we don't really know particulars. But obviously, things didn't work out with his wife. I would imagine that he was in no way open to any kind of reconciliation from what it seemed. And so they're now divorced. And I thought, now see, I hadn't read anything about the Orville as far as plot and who all was in it, etc., because I don't like to have preconceived notions. But the minute, it's a year later and he's talking about not having a first officer, I thought, well, I know who the first officer is going to be.
Oh, you figured it out then.
Immediately. Because Adrian Palicki's in the regular cast. So what else is she going to do? She's going to be the first officer.
Right. She's just not there to have blue aliens blow their heads in bed. I mean, that's not the only reason she's there for.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And unfortunately, I feel like some people didn't really think that she had much to do in the first episode. But we can talk about that as we go along, because I think that there were good things and bad things for her. I think that there could have been more done with the character, but it's just episode 1.
Okay. That's interesting to me, because I thought she had a lot, but go on. Yeah.
I agree, but there are some people that just really didn't. Do you have a Twitter comment, Mike?
We've got a couple. We've got one from Scott at SXOTTLAN. He says, I enjoyed it. I would prefer more over-the-top humor to set it apart from Trek, but MacFarlane goes more sentimental in his live-action work. And then we also have a comment from Greg at SJSharksFan88, who says, I'm watching. You're not reading the YouTube comments. We're actually not. Sorry, too many things to look at. So tweet us if you wanna hear us comment on your comments. And Scott also says, the bit where the super friendly holodeck adversary and the captain tripping through the blob crew member are what I laughed at the most. So there you go.
I have to agree. I found both of those moments really funny and charming at the same time. And I feel like that a lot of people may have just been expecting, Family Guy in space, but that's not what I thought this was going to be, especially after reading a short interview with Seth MacFarlane and how he missed the optimism of the 90s. And so this show kind of does have a 90s feel to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's, oh gosh, going into this, I mean, I like Seth MacFarlane. Of course, Family Guy, and I like the movie Ted, all those kind of things. But I knew he always wanted to make Star Trek. He wanted his own Star Trek series. and which I was always interested to see if he could pull something off like that. So now we have the Orville, and I felt like, is he going to go more serious than he should, or is it going to be really outrageously funny? And I feel like it is kind of in the middle. It's a comedy/drama, a dramedy, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because it definitely doesn't have one tone. But when you think about life in general, just real life in general, not everything's a nonstop comedy and not everything's a nonstop drama. So it's actually kind of more on the level of reality to have humorous things and to have serious things, because that's kind of really the way real life works.
I mean, I thought the alien, in bed with his blue stuff, I keep mentioning that, but the blue stuff, I thought it was funny, but it wasn't, I didn't know if, we thought it was funny, but I don't know, it didn't have to be funny. It's an alien that just has this issue. But when Ed is in the Admiral's office and he says mint and he puts it in his mouth, he says, no, it's a marble, and he spits it out. I'm like, okay, we're going slapstick. This stuff definitely is a comedy at that point.
Yeah, it's, I think the only thing I'll say about that from this point on is that it struggles a little bit with tone. But again, it's the first episode, and a pilot episode usually undergoes some changes between that episode and the actual first run of the series. So anyway, let's get back to our breakdown. Ed asked his friend Gordon to be a helmsman, and Gordon sounds like he is a party animal. So we all knew that was going to be interesting. And so they take a shuttle to the Orville. I think it's pretty obvious that they don't have any kind of transporter technology at this time, because none of the characters, none of the alien species that we saw use it. So I'm guessing they just have to go the hard way with shuttle pods, etc.
Yep. Yeah. I noticed that too. I don't know if we'll see transporters come later, but I was surprised that we didn't, because there's so much technology in this show that's very similar to Star Trek, and mentioned earlier about the holodeck. But the shuttle coming to the ship was very much like the motion picture, but 6 minutes shorter.
Yes, 6 minutes shorter, and with different music.
Yes.
But yeah. So, and it was an interesting design of the ship, but Mike's got another Twitter comment. I can see his eyes just signaling.
Well, is
that what that is?
That's what it is. In regards to the music, Brandon, the host of The Edge, is watching apparently, and he said that the music is amazing. Every note reflects the best of Trek music. I'd have to say I agree with that, to be honest. Like, when I saw that scene, it really did remind me, a lot of this episode reminds me of the motion picture, but like the music in there really sort of like felt like classic 90s Trek, and it was like putting on a warm blanket or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to go back and just focus on listening to the music, but I do agree. I mean, I thought the music was very good. It's very 90s and such. Yeah, I totally agree. Did Brandon have anything else very insightful to say on Twitter besides that?
He did, but I'm not 100% sure that it's okay for broadcast, so I'll leave that for a minute.
It must be very insightful. Okay,
but he also did say something about a plot point later in the episode, so we'll get to that in a minute. So
okay,
all right,
right. So yeah, I did enjoy the shuttle scene, because that's when we get our first real look at the Orville, which is an interesting design. It's a really interestingly designed ship, and like nothing that I recall seeing before. And I have seen a lot of science fiction in my days, so I felt like it was a very unique design, and interesting that it has 3 engines. So I guess if one blows out, you still got 2. If 2 blow out, you still got 1.
It could come in handy at some point down the road.
I see you're good at math.
Yeah, it did come in handy. I thought, what do they need 3 engines for? Oh, really, Brandi? Well, you're going to find out later on in the episode. So I really did enjoy that part. My only problem with the music was not in its composition, but in the sound mixing, because I swear every show these days has the music too loud. If I cannot hear the dialogue, your music's too loud. Please stop it. And we've tried every setting on our speakers, and unless we go just like totally flat, the music's always too loud. But I'm not complaining because I thought that the music was great. So anyway, so now we get to meet the crew. We've got our tiny little girl, Alara, on security. She's from a planet with very heavy gravity. So in Earth gravity, she is extremely strong and can jump really high. Jessica Jones, anyone? No, that's okay. I wasn't comparing her to Jessica Jones, but the big jump, I thought, oh, cool. Yep. And then we have our navigator, John, who is apparently a jerk as well. So he and Gordon get along great. And then we have our second officer, which is Bortus. Bortus. Yeah. Yeah, Bortus is interesting.
I'm trying to figure out the yeah.
No.
What do you find interesting about Bortus?
Well, I kept trying to figure out where I'd seen him before.
Oh.
I spent the entire episode trying to figure out where I'd seen him before, and it's probably because I just didn't know the actor's name. But finally, I even under all the makeup, I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's that guy from The Expanse! I know who he is! So I was actually really excited about that because I think he's a really good actor, because I would never have known it was him if there wasn't just something familiar about his eyes. That's the only thing I had.
Yeah, Peter Macon is the actor's name. And it's not that I'm like really smart. I know this. I just looked it up.
Yes. And I may have actually gotten myself confused because my list of celebrities went away, and I'm going to...
Was he on The Expanse, the show, or The Expanse, the Enterprise episode?
Yeah, let me get there. Oh, no, Bortus, I got confused with that. So I apologize.
Everyone's trying to figure out the names. That's a joke in the show. It's like, I'm not good with names. I'm still trying to figure them out, right?
You know, and we all are, too. We all are. So I apologize. But no, I do know that actor, and I was confusing him with another actor who was on The Expanse. So my apologies. Claire, everybody knows where we've seen Claire because she's the Doctor, and we have seen her on Star Trek Deep Space Nine as Cassidy Yates. Yes. And I actually read a quote from her in a little interview with some of the cast where she said it's the most fun she's ever had on a job. The most fun. So I thought, well, that's high praise because she's been on some pretty cool stuff.
I could see Seth MacFarlane being more fun than Avery Brooks on a day-to-day basis.
I don't know. Avery Brooks seems like a pretty cool cat to me.
I'm not saying he's not cool, but I can see having more fun with Seth MacFarlane because he's probably always kidding around.
That probably is true. And then we have Isaac, who is science and engineering. There are other extraneous members of the crew that we'll learn more about, I'm sure. So John and Ed meet, the Orville launches, and Admiral Halsey. I started laughing out loud when I realized that the Admiral was named Halsey because... Oh, just look up Admiral Halsey and you guys will understand. It's actually a famous admiral in naval history.
Oh, so I did not know that.
It really sounded familiar to me, but I couldn't place it.
Well, and the thing that I started thinking of was actually the movie The Hunt for Red October, when Sean Connery's character, whose name I cannot remember for the moment, is saying to Jack Ryan, "What books did you write?" And he says, well, I wrote a book called The Fighting Sailor about Admiral Halsey, fighting techniques. And he tells him his conclusions were all wrong. Anyway, so Admiral Halsey tells Ed that there's going to be a first officer, and guess who it is, Kelly? Anyone who's surprised, raise your hand. Nobody? Okay. And so And everybody can hear them fighting in the ready room when she comes on board. Well, he calls it his office, but it's a ready room.
Right.
And that's, it's like the kids listening to mom and dad fight and wondering what's going to happen. And, we have Kelly running into Gordon in the hallway when he's just trying to go pee, man. Don't get in the way of someone who needs to pee.
Yeah, but
I'm
he said
speaking
he
from
could hold it.
experience.
He said he can
He
hold it.
did say he could
so-
hold it. So he was polite, but he was kind of antsy through that entire conversation.
It made me
So-
antsy, too.
And I just felt like, should I pause this? I feel like I need to go to the little girl's room.
See, that would be interesting if statistics show from TiVo, for example, that there was a lot of pausing during that scene.
Maybe someday we'll find that out. So anyway, she asks him if he's okay taking orders from her, and he basically pretends that it's going to be okay when he's really not sure. And so they're being sent to Epsilon 2 with supplies that have been ordered. And that's when we find out they've been sent there under false pretenses. And Dr. Aronoff has told them that he needs protection from the krill, which made me laugh out loud because krill is what, like, orca whales eat and such. And so I thought, these are going to be fish people, okay. And their ships do kind of look a little bit like a sea creature. So, they kind of went with that theme. And then we get to see the lab and the time machine. So it's everything inside this stasis bubble is affected by this time machine, and you can age something 100 years or 1,000 years or what have you.
Right. You can age forward. You just can't go back.
Yeah. Can't go back. Only forward.
So they put a banana in there, and they put a beam on it, and the banana shrivels up and just goes rotten. And they're very impressed with the banana machine. Oh, wow, you can destroy bananas with the banana machine. What's the big deal? And they said, oh, no, it's over 30 days. And Ed's like, yeah, it feels that long standing here. Like, what's... It's
They're
not
just
a
like,
banana
get to the
machine.
point.
Yeah.
And
it actually, it's rapid time.
And prior to that,
Yeah.
they do, I think, give some seeds to what's his name, right? To Ed?
Ed.
Is it?
Yes,
He
yes.
gives some seeds to Ed. And so Ed puts one in his pocket.
Okay.
And
I think he eats one.
Yeah.
And I just thought, oh, gosh, don't put his head under that beam. Tree will grow out of it. So, like how when you're a kid and you don't eat the pips in the apple because you think that if you drink water, a tree will grow out of you? Or was that just my father who said
Well, they
that?
kept on saying, like, this thing can grow in anything. It can grow in metal. It can grow in, whatever. So I was thinking, like, well, if they just swallow this whole, isn't gonna grow in there, I mean, they like set that up.
Careful, that may be episode 2.
Okay.
It may be growing in
Okay.
him right now.
I don't know. I would think it would probably go through his system more quickly than it would ever take to
That's
actually
true.
have the seed germinate. So I
That's
don't think
true.
that's really an issue.
Right, and then it will destroy the plumbing system of the Orville over time because it will just grow with. It's a mess. Applesauce everywhere.
That's just, no, let's not do that. So, yeah, I did actually really like the banter between Ed and Kelly right there because it demonstrated that they know each other very well. And they forgot about their differences for the moment, and they were just, it was like old times. But, it doesn't take them long to be back at odds with each other. Except when a worker at the lab tries to steal the machine and accidentally ages one of the technicians 100 or so years and kills her. Just her head, though. It was just her head, which is horrifying.
It's kind of freaky. I
And-
mean, and this sort
It
of like
is.
delves into that area where it's like, it's a comedy, yes, but there are definitely dramatic elements to it which hold up, and are kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it is Alara who says that this could be used, to age armies like 100 years, and that it could be used for really horrible things. And of course, that's why Dr. Aronoff wants protection, because the Krill want it. They're coming to get it. And the Orville is just one ship. Maybe you should have requisitioned a couple of more ships, Dr. Aronoff, but we'll leave that as it is. And so then finally the Krill show up, And I thought, their ship's going to be green, isn't it? Because green is the color of evil, apparently. And that's fine, because it actually kind of, again, has this sort of sea monster look to the ship. Even their shuttles look kind of like sea creatures. And they shuttle down to the planet. And so now they've got to escape with the machine, and they're basically fighting their way out of the lab back to their shuttle so they can get back to the Orville. And meanwhile, the Orville is getting the crap kicked out of it. And so it's Gordon decides he's going to do a crazy maneuver called hugging the donkey. I don't want to know where that term originated, but
I have diagrams. Since we're live, I can show you pictures.
Fantastic. I want to see. So, and I actually really enjoyed this scene because they had a ship in space moving like a ship in space should be able to move. And with a skilled pilot being able to just, turn abruptly in sort of like drifting, but in space. And just watching that ship, I was actually, when they were doing it from the pilot's point of view, I was starting to feel a little ill because I have an inner ear imbalance. And so I can't even go on Star Tours without Dramamine anymore, guys. It's just bad. It's bad. And so it was getting to the point where it's like, this is really well done. And I'm going to look away for a minute. Okay, I'm back. But I actually really enjoyed that because their deflectors were getting hammered and they were taking damage, and they did the best they could to hold on until the shuttle pod got back.
See, I like how you had to look away, yet I was going, woo! Because I thought it was fun how it was twisting and turning.
It was magnificent. I loved that. I loved it. I thought, this is what I want to see in a starship battle.
Yes.
You've got this smaller maneuverable ship, and you are putting it to good use, and you're using it in a way that you don't usually see in this type of show. So I loved that. Loved it. And then, of course, they make a magnificent rescue attempt of the shuttle. Krill did do the alien queen thing and hide on the ship. You would think that, the shuttle would let them know, your weight's wrong. You've got extra people on board. But I loved the seatbelt thing. Everybody actually put on their seatbelts, and that meant something because basically they hit the brakes and the Krill goes flying into the front console. So, Krill down. Well done. And they managed to make it back onto the Orville. 2 of their engines have been destroyed now, so they only have 1 left, and they only have partial power. So, they're in trouble. And that is when Kelly comes up with the idea to actually give them the machine. But with a little alteration.
Just a little.
Just a tiny little redwood seed alteration. And so that's what they do. They actually use a glue gun and glue that seed to the top of the machine so that when the machine is activated, you know what's going to happen. Now, I don't know of any other movie or television show that has ever destroyed an enemy ship with a tree. That, I think, is completely unique.
Especially in space. Because trees aren't usually in space.
Yeah. And I don't care what the rest of the crew thinks. I liked Happy Arbor Day. I thought that was clever.
Yes, I thought it was too. I mean, no, that was really one of my favorite scenes. I just loved how then, they activate the machine and then the redwood tree just rolls up and just destroys the ship from within. And now there's this tree in space with the ship around it. And it's just that's a great way to destroy a ship is use some wood.
Yeah, well, that's not something I ever would have seen coming. I wouldn't have seen coming. And for that reason, it took me by surprise. I mean, once they figured out they were going to do that, I was excited to see it. But Mike, do you have a Twitter comment?
Well, Brandon says, I totally predicted that the seeds would come into play as soon as he put them in his pocket. I mean, I did too. I mean, that scene was very much like these seeds can do this very unique thing. Here, have some. And then he very casually sticks them in his pocket. It's like, yeah, obviously this is going to come into play later on. I didn't know how, but that was pretty obvious of them. A little bit clunky, but
yeah, well, I don't really feel like it was that clunky. It's Chekhov's gun. If you put this thing in the scene, you better pay it off later. And what I hate is when you draw attention to something like that and then nothing comes of it. And I've seen that happen far too often in shows that think they're smarter than their viewer.
That's true, because we would be sitting here saying, what was the whole idea with the seeds anyway? I mean, why even have the scene where they give him seeds and he ate a seed and that was it? Like, who cares? Like, what was that all about? We would be saying that right now. So, yeah, exactly. The seeds had to come into play at some point. And, of course, I think, we all knew at some point something was going to happen with the seeds. Didn't expect it to blow up a ship as a tree.
It was great.
But,
I loved it.
They planted the seed in our head that the seeds were going to be used for something.
Oh, that was perfectly stated. Well done, Bruce.
I'm done. I'm out of here. See ya.
All right. Yeah. Drop the mic moment. So anyway, finally, the Orville limps back to space dock or whatever they call it in this particular cinematic universe. And they have to get their 2 engines repaired. And Kelly comes in to Ed and says, hey, I've got a friend that just got promoted. He's now eligible to be an XO, and I'll give him your information, and he can be your first officer. He's a really great guy. And Ed decides that she really is the best candidate for first officer, and so he asks her to stay. And then the last thing we see is Kelly talking to Admiral Halsey, and we find out that Ed wouldn't even have this command if it weren't for her, because she was the one who talked him into it. Now, you can read into that what you want, but in my opinion, I feel like she's paying penance is what she's doing, because she knows she screwed up, and he's probably never going to forgive her. And he had that horrible year because of something that she did, even though he still made choices.
Yeah, but what's going to happen when he finds out that he got the command because of her? Is he going to resent her for that?
Oh, he will resent her. I believe he will resent her.
So she's digging a bigger hole for herself.
She is, and that's one of the things. But maybe it'll get to the point where Ed won't actually feel resentful if he finds this out. And instead, he'll actually see it for what it is, which is her trying in some way to make up for cheating on him and for, their marriage ending.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest themes of this episode was the relationship, which is going back to your comment earlier that some people have said that the character of Kelly didn't have a lot in this episode. I felt like the majority of this episode was about the relationship, and the only way this could be about the relationship is if the two are at each other all the time. And he's always like making comments about like, I wish I had that time machine because I could go back, and correct mistakes like I made in the past. She's like, oh, really? We're going to do this now? There's always this tension between the two arguing with each other about the relationship and their marriage. And so it's very much about this couple.
Yeah, it is. And I'm not one of those people who thinks that she didn't have enough to do. I think that having her cheating on him is a difficult choice to make for a main character. But if it had been the other way around, it wouldn't have worked in the same way. So I understand why they did it. And I know Mike was signaling that he had a Twitter comment.
I do. It's just it's a comment from Jeff at FitzyCalHerb, who says, love watching this live, and yes, the tree was epic.
It was so epic. I loved it so much. So overall, I enjoyed this first episode. And I will continue watching it because no pilot is perfect. Well, that's not true. I've seen a few perfect pilots in my life, but not very many. And
like Gordon?
Huh? Like Gordon?
Pilot in the Orville.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was,
He's difficult. No, he's difficult. He's yeah.
He's
anyway,
your first pilot.
Yeah. So I'm just with Gordon, he can use some work. There are parts about him that I like, and then there are other parts that I just want to punch him in the throat. But that is the kind of character he is, and so he nails that. Scott Grimes nails that completely.
See, I'm surprised. So. I mean, Gordon mentions, that he can be a jerk too, or he is a jerk or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, he didn't come across that much of a jerk to me.
Except when he was drinking as they were embarking on their mission. He was drinking on the bridge.
I guess my delivery was lacking and whatever in the context, but
I know, but it got us on this now,
okay.
So that's good.
It took me a second.
Okay.
It took me a second, and I'm like, oh, he's talking about the pilot who is Gordon. Cool. I feel dumb
No,
now.
I just wanted to make sure that was properly conveyed, but yeah, my bad. Anyway, sorry.
So there's two jerks. There's two jerks on this ship. At least they say they are. So there's Gordon, and then there is John. Mm-hmm. And John's the one who is drinking on the bridge because he wants soda. He likes to drink
he wants
his soda.
But there was Gordon drinking out of a sort of flask thing.
Yeah.
And Ed actually says, oh, no, that was in the shuttle. That was in the
shuttle drinking beer.
You are right. But he was still piloting something while drinking.
Yes. Well,
which is not okay.
Ed gave him crap for that, too. But I mean, you kind of need those kind of characters in a funny show like this. You got to have the one that's, going to do outrageous, weird things, and everybody's got to tell him, stop it, don't do that. Or he's going to always give the wise cracks on the bridge. And, it's just, this relationship between the captain and the first officer, that's not going to be good. I know both of them. This is going to be bad. It's not good.
Yeah. And he was going around telling everyone that Kelly was a B. And then he said later in the episode, maybe she's not such a B. So, because Kelly is somebody who can separate her personal feelings from her duty. And, duty. Let me say it correctly. And so her duty will not be affected by her feelings for Ed or her feelings for Gordon or anyone else. She will continue to serve in her office to the best of her ability.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, I got my little note card here.
Okay.
It's a good thing my wife had a pad of paper next to the computer when I was watching this. So, so John, I like the soda comment. So when Ed's addressing his senior crew as they're standing there, and he's just like, okay, and you are this, and who are you, and whatever. And he gets to John, and John's only concern is, can I drink soda on the bridge? Because the last captain let me drink soda on the bridge. So, and that's the most important thing to him. It reminds me of years ago, I was interviewing this woman at this company I worked at, and she was applying for a job to work for me. And her biggest concern was, could she keep her office? I said, do you have any questions about the position? She's like, can I keep the office? I'm like, I don't know. We'll have to discuss that. I might have to move you. But anyway, now that I've described the position to you, what do you think of it? Is something you're interested in? She goes, if I can keep my office. That was her only concern, was her office. His was his soda. And then, of course, when we see them on the bridge, he's drinking the soda. I just wish it would have said, big gulp or something on the cup.
Right. And I hope that was a spill-proof cup, because honestly, liquids and electronics are not a good mix. We all know this.
Yeah, that's why he said, as long as you keep it below the console.
Yep.
Right.
And don't spill it on anything.
Yeah, don't get on the carpet.
I love.
And that actually...
I was going to say, I love how the look of the cup was your typical big gulp cup, but just silver.
Right.
It's a futuristic
straw.
big gulp cup. You know what I mean? That's
well, yeah, and it's going to keep that drink cold.
That's true.
It's
true.
So yeah, actually, I had a flashback moment to retail when he said, "As long as you keep it below the console and don't spill it." I thought that is exactly what managers would say to me when they're like, "You can't have liquids around the registers." I'm like, I work 4 or 5 hours with zero break and can't ever get away from the front end. So you are going to let me have water. I will have it in a spill-proof container, but you cannot deny me water.
Yep. But that type of thing is, I think, kind of what makes this show stand apart from Trek in a way, and it's kind of like the commentary on Trek that we're seeing here, which is Star Trek is perhaps a more realistic show than the Orville, but what the Orville is going to be more realistic about is its portrayal of sort of like the workplace. That is a question that would be asked, even though you would never see that question asked on The Next Generation,
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
It focuses on more of the normal interactions of the crew, and you probably were going to bring this up, Bruce, when Ed is running down the hall and he runs through the goo that is a crew member, and he stops and he turns around and is like, "You okay, man? I'm so sorry." And Blob's like, "Yeah, it's okay, man. I'm fine."
Well, that is the one thing I like about the show, is it almost takes just what would be everyday type of situations where not everybody's perfect. It's like, I'm can I drink a soda on the bridge? And oops, sorry, I bumped into you, blob, or whatever. Or, hey, I got to go to the bathroom, but sure, I've got time. I can hold it. I mean, these are things in everyday life that we deal with that we don't necessarily see on Star Trek. I would like to see some of that worked in on Star Trek, but not to this level of humor. But just like some little everyday things where it's like, maybe if, you saw Picard walking down the corridor, and he runs into Riker, and he's like, "Number one, do you have a moment?" He's like, "I'll be right with you, Captain. If I can use the bathroom real quick, I'll be right there." I mean, why not? I mean, that's what would happen. I do that to my boss all the time. She's like, "Are you ready to meet?" I'm like, "Yeah, but can I run to the bathroom? Because I know I'm going to be in here for an hour, and I really got to go." I mean, that happens in real life. I'd like to see just a little more real life things in Star Trek. It would make it a little more. It would just ground it a little more in reality.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why this is even funny in the first place is, like, if it were on any other show, like that soda thing wouldn't really be funny. But I think part of it is the fact that we're reacting to never seeing anything like that on Star Trek. So it's that juxtaposition. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It is true. And it actually makes me wonder now, why don't they just have a bathroom for the bridge officers?
Oh, I've heard people ask that before about Star Trek. Where's the bathroom? I've always heard
they do.
Yeah, but
they do on the bridge of
like
the Next Generation Enterprise. Apparently, like if you go around the corner of the set and a door that you never see, it actually does say like head or whatever they call it.
That's true. Yeah. That is a fact, but it's just never mentioned.
Right?
On the show.
They would never mention it on the show. Never.
No, but it would be funny if Picard all of a sudden walked on the bridge and he's still zipping up, as he walks out of the...
Oh, yeah. Like, do that. They did that in Firefly. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's see some zip up. People have bodily functions. Come on.
Yes, they do. Okay. And if you drink a lot of soda on the bridge, why do we keep bringing up the soda? No, stop it. So
soda's delicious.
Speaking of soda, I'm gonna stay on the food thing, because one of my other favorite things is when they got all excited when Ed and some of the crew were down on the space station or whatever it was about the machine, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're being shot at. We're being whatever. There's a pizza party." They're like, I don't know where you start. But anyway, everybody on the bridge is all getting excited. A pizza party? There's a pizza party?
Oh, can we go down?
Can we go down? There's a pizza party. And then Ed finally tells them, there is no pizza party. I repeat, there is no pizza party.
Yeah, after our tiny security officer just throws basically part of a bulkhead into this other technician who's trying to steal it for the krill.
She's got, her superpowers because, like you said, she's from heavier gravity planets, so she's got all this strength. And I don't know. There's something about that character that really interests me because she has those abilities. And like you said, she was leaping into the air at one point when she was running with the machine, and she just kind of leaped really, really high. It almost reminded me of the Bionic Woman, across everything.
Yeah, because she had 2 bionic legs.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah.
So my least favorite character, Isaac. I don't get him. The robot guy. He's a racist. But I didn't find him funny or all that interesting, at least in this episode. He may become interesting later, but I was just kind of like, eh.
Yeah, they gave us basically no insight into that character other than he's a racist. So, or is it even a he? I guess it's got a male name, so I don't know if he responds to a specific gender. They didn't really cover any of that. So it's kind of just like, okay, well, that's Isaac.
I think the racism thing was amusing because you do see characters like that on Star Trek all the time, where they're like, we're a robot. The Borg, essentially, right? We're robots. All biological beings are inferior. And it's one of those things where you just kind of like roll past it because it's such a abstract context in a sense. Like, yeah, these robots think that they're superior to humans. And, as a show told from a human perspective, you're like, that's not cool. But when you break it down into this reality, I mean, like he says, like he's basically racist, he's extremely racist. And I love that they called it out for what it is in sort of like a real world context. And the fact that he's on the ship, I think, is just kind of, I don't know, I think it's funny. But I agree with that he doesn't have anything to do here, but I have a feeling he's going to become kind of like the Spock of the show in some way or another.
Or the Data or whatever. Yeah, I mean, he could end up being one of the most popular characters, but right now, he didn't have a whole lot to do on this one.
We just don't know enough about him yet. It was the one character that we really got the least amount of background, I think.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of bathrooms, Bortus.
Can we pause this? I just need to step out.
Oh, please. If you were a Lachlan like Bortus is, you would only have to go to the bathroom once a year.
That would be great.
Yes. And poor Ed, he gets up at least, 3 times a night to use the bathroom. And Bortus is really mortified by that. I am so sorry, sir. to hear that.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, Ed, I know, Betty. I know. I don't sleep through the night ever.
Well, John's got to be up with all that soda. Why does it I keep coming back to the soda. I'm sorry.
Are you obsessed with soda, Bruce?
I'm so thirsty.
Are you?
I have water here, but I'm so thirsty.
Well, as long as you keep it below your computer and don't spill it on anything, that's okay.
That's true. And the other thing I want to mention, I like, there's certain lines and stuff where the dude, Gordon, says, he did something right, and he was hoping that means that he can wear shorts to work next time. No.
I've already told you no. Nobody wants to see that on the bridge.
No. No. And if they do, keep it below the console.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a ginger, so he's going to be fair-skinned and freckled. You know what those legs are going to look like. I know, because I have those legs. So, yeah, let's just not inflict that upon people.
Brandi, I'm learning that you have a lot in common with these characters.
Do we?
I'm going to start nicknaming you Orville.
Oh, works for me. Mike's got a comment.
This is from Scott again. He says, I keep seeing Brandon Braga's name brought up in connection with Orville, but must have missed his name in the credits. Is he working on this? Yes, he is an executive producer, and he's a member of the writing staff. He's directed one episode. He's very, very heavily involved in this show. It sounds like he's basically MacFarlane's, right-hand man, and the two of them, became friends through David A. Goodman, who's also working on the show, who was an Enterprise writer, as well as, a writer on Family Guy and all that good stuff. And the three of them are all executive producers on this, and there are a lot of people from Star Trek working on this show, including Andre Bormanis, who's on the writing staff, who was a writer on, Enterprise, as well as being the science advisor for Star Trek for a long, long time. Sorry. And then further behind the scenes, like you look at the directors, Robert Duncan McNeil. The next episode is directed by James L. Conway, who did the pilot for Enterprise. Jonathan Frakes directed an episode. And the photography, not on the pilot, but I think for the rest of the show, is by Marvin Rush, who is the man who's basically responsible for creating the look of Star Trek for the Next Generation era. He was the cinematographer for all of the shows from Next Gen all the way through Enterprise. So, and then a lot of the designers and everything are people who worked on Star Trek too. So there's definitely a very, very conscious effort to bring as many Star Trek people onto this show as they possibly can. We're going to be talking about that on Friday on Stage 9. So check that out on Friday.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear that on Stage 9 because I also, just getting to the show, this, of course, isn't Star Trek. And it isn't really trying to be Star Trek. It's kind of a parody of it. Yet I don't see why you need to bring all these Star Trek alumni into the fold to make this show happen. Unless they're going to try to make it appeal to Trekkies and Trekkers more than maybe this pilot did. I mean, for me, as someone who really loves Star Trek, this isn't a show that I felt like I had to seek out and watch just because it's trying to be a parody of Star Trek. It's something I definitely would have checked out whether I was going to do this live show or not. But I don't, at least from my opinion, it's not like trying to be a show for Trekkies. I feel like it's trying to be a show more for the general audience. This is just the setting.
Yeah, I can see your point there, and I think that that's a very good way to look at it. If anything, I feel like it's a love letter to Star Trek because Seth MacFarlane is a huge Star Trek fan. And honestly, if you had been someone that worked on Star Trek and there were all these ideas you had and you kept having them shot down and say, no, we don't do that in Star Trek. Now you've got this show where you can explore those things because it's not Star Trek.
I guess the analogy I kept thinking when I was watching it is Orville is to Star Trek as Scrubs is to ER. And my wife loved ER, but she never watched Scrubs. But I was more the type that will watch Scrubs and not ER. So, I mean, I feel like it's not necessarily because a show takes place in an emergency room or a hospital doesn't mean that the same audience that would watch ER is going to be the same audience that watches Scrub. I'm sure there were several people there, and I'm sure, there's things from ER that Scrubs made fun of. But, I mean, they're just two different genres. They just happen to take place in the same setting. And one's a comedy and one's more of a drama. It's the same thing I thought then about, it's like, Love Boat to Titanic. I mean, you just...
Whoa. Yeah, okay. I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and any more notes on that little piece of scrap paper, Bruce?
Well, just
anything about soda?
No more about the soda. Just the last thing I think I didn't mention on here. Well, first of all, we didn't talk much about Dr. Finn, but I didn't feel like she had a whole lot in this episode. Did you, Brandi? Or
no, I didn't feel like she did, except for when he's just addressing the senior officers, and she basically makes it very clear that she is the all-around kind of doctor. Whether it's something wrong with his body or something wrong with his mind, she's going to take care of it. So
yeah, that was her more standout scene in the episode. So yeah, I didn't have anything except I like the ogre being like really down to earth, like, hey, yeah, I'm Justin.
Hey,
nice
how's it going,
you.
man?
Yeah, how's it going? Yeah, because you expect him to go like, I'm an ogre, donkey, or whatever. But
no, I love that because especially since my husband and I have a D&D group, and so I was looking at that and going, oh, ogres. That is just so cute. I wonder what his armor class is. But yeah, I loved that scene because it could have gone horribly wrong, but it didn't because the gentleman playing the ogre just nailed it. Just nailed the big, hey, I'm a great fighter, but teddy bear on the inside.
And speaking of teddy bears, where's Ted? I want Ted to make a cameo appearance on the Orville. That's my end. I'm done.
I'd be down with that.
Okay, then. So be sure and write Seth MacFarlane. I'm sure that he will be happy to hear from you.
And any final thoughts from you, Brandi?
Well, I went into the Orville not expecting it to be a comedy through and through. So I agree with the descriptor of dramedy because it balances both of them. And I think that it's going to really settle into its most comfortable spot over the next few episodes. I think that it's something worth continuing. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. My husband did too, for the record. And, everybody's going to have their own opinion, but I didn't read any of the reviews. I've read only quotes from people who were cast in it and really nothing about it. And I find that if I go into something with no expectations, that I tend to enjoy it more. And so I actually really enjoyed this.
Cool.
And I will watch it again.
And Bruce, I don't know if you have any final thoughts on the thing, or if you just wanted to end on the ogre, but...
No, I mean, I like Seth MacFarlane. I'll probably watch the Orville, the next episode, give it another shot. It's not that I don't like it, but it's not, I don't see it as appointment viewing for me that every Thursday, because it's going to be on Thursday nights. I don't see myself every Thursday night running to the TV, ooh, the Orville's on tonight, or necessarily recording on the DVR. But, you know, if it's on demand, or if I'm actually sitting there watching TV while it's on, I'll tune into it. That's what I do with Family Guy and American Dad and these others. I don't necessarily, it's not appointment viewing for me, but when it's on and I'm sitting there, yeah, I'll be checking it out occasionally.
Cool. Well, this was fun. No? Yes?
Yes, absolutely. It's not like really doing something live because we don't actually see the audience. They only have to look at our mugs.
Yeah, I can't hear them applauding every time I say something smart.
I know. Maybe we could rig something up that everybody could join the call and you could hear their adulation.
I don't think I want
directed
to hear
at
it.
you.
I don't think I want to hear that.
Oh, chicken. You just want to sit there and drink your soda. I know.
Water this time, unfortunately.
Well, we have a bit of an announcement to make, I guess, as we've been doing over the past few weeks with these various episodes of The Edge. We are going to have another sub-show, which is going to... Well, it's going to drop on Mondays, but on Sunday nights, we are going to be doing a live reaction show to Discovery, which is what this was sort of a whole test for, you know, surprise, surprise. And Brandi and Bruce are going to be co-hosting that show, so I'm excited. I don't know, are you guys excited?
Do I look excited?
Yes, you look excited.
I am excited. I'm super excited. And I finally can tell people I've been sitting on this forever.
Oh, my gosh. I guess this means, Mike, that we passed the test.
I guess so. You know, I mean, we haven't gotten the overnights in yet, but we'll see. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super excited to watch it, and then I mean, for just as far as like the logistics are concerned, for people who, you know, maybe don't live in America and aren't going to get to, you know, see Discovery before we actually go on the air. The plan is to broadcast this live on Sunday nights, and then on Monday mornings release it as a podcast. So when you wake up Monday morning, it'll be there in audio form for you to listen to. And, you know, I mean, no pressure, guys, but you're going to be the first ones out of the gate in terms of, you know, Trek FM's a reaction to new Discovery episodes. So don't drop the ball.
That's okay. I'm champing at the bit, man. Come on.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's do this.
The pressure. I just hope there isn't a Derek in Discovery like we had in the Orville.
So, you know, because the first episode airs in the evening, you know, on Sunday night, the first two episodes and everything, in order to give us a little bit of time to prep, for the very first episode of this live show, it will be on Monday, September 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. But after that, we're going to switch to Sundays after every, you know, new episode of Discovery, and broadcast on Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. So, yeah, be sure to tune in and listen and let us know what you think. We want to know what you think, you know, after, you know, because, I mean, everyone will have just seen it. At least in America, you know, sorry, the rest of the world. It's, you know, just the nature of Netflix, I guess. But hey, you guys get it on Netflix, so you know what? It all evens out in terms of the grand scheme of things, I guess.
It does. It all balances.
But yeah, we want to know what you're thinking, so be sure to tweet us your reactions and your reactions to what we're saying, and yeah, let's start a dialogue. Could be fun. All right.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be great. I mean, this will be the first time, and I'm sure for Brandi, of course, too, but to sit there and watch a new episode of Star Trek and then immediately just go online and just start talking about it.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I mean,
it's really exciting.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember, when the Next Generation premiered and I watched all the other series, as they came on, and I would just sit there and watch it, and that was it. Like, I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. Or maybe I did like a couple of days later at work or something if somebody watched it, but now this is like instant. I mean, we got to have so much going on. And I'm not talking just about this show, but just, just all the social media and the groups that are out there and the Babel conference, and just talk about Discovery as it comes on and just pick it apart.
Yep. It's a rare thing because it's not something that anyone's been able to do before with the Star Trek series. And so this is breaking some new ground. And I'm so excited to be a part of it.
I'm excited that you guys are a part of it too. Well, it's been fun talking about the Orville today, but that isn't the only thing we're discussing here on Trek FM this week, so here's a look at what you may have missed elsewhere on the network.
Previously on Trek.fm, Literary Treks.
Oh, Matthew, I'm doing just fine. It's always fun every week to hop on here and talk Star Trek books and comics with you. And I don't know if you realize this, Matthew, but this is our 200th episode of Literary... Wait a minute, Matthew. We don't host this show anymore.
The 602 Club.
I honestly was thrilled with the way that they set it up because, like you said, sort of like Russian dolls, I guess, is a good way to explain it. You introduce one character in this existing show, and then it leads to that character's own show, which leads to the next one's own show.
The Edge, a Star Trek Discovery podcast.
There were a lot of comments talking about this roller coaster ride.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, I'm so excited Trek's on. Oh, it's a prequel. I saw the first trailer and I loved it. Oh, Brian Fuller's no longer working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're getting all this diversity. Oh, look at the Klingons, right? And you could just see it. Seriously, some fans have gone through some serious roller coaster rides.
To the journey!
And so I could see the Hirogen viewing themselves as very noble, very civilized. They don't let their prey suffer, but really they're doing these horrific things, just like we do here in the real world when we have to go fight wars.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they go home and they write an epic poem about it, and that makes it okay.
the Hirogen equivalent of Beowulf. Right?
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
Check out these shows and discover what we're discussing in your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on the iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or on the desktop iTunes app. That helps us out greatly and makes it easier for other people to find the shows when they search for it in iTunes. And please leave us a star rating and a review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, and in most third-party apps, and you can also stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link as well. We'd like to thank our associate producers for today's episode, Norman C. Lau, Tony Robinson, Thomas Pulio, Lisa Slack, Shoaib Mirza. Thank you all very much for your support, and we really appreciate it. If you want to be like them, head on over to patreon.com and become a patron of the network. If you go to patreon.com/trekfm, that's patreon.com/trekfm, you'll find all of our perks, including early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more available through our special patrons website, Patron Zone. It requires a great deal of money to produce and distribute these shows each month. We really appreciate any support you can give us and hope you'll join the team. Again, you'll find all the details at patreon.com/trekfm. So yeah, well, Brandi, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, people can always find me lurking in the Babel Conference, which is our Facebook group. And if you just type Babel into the search engine, it should come right up as the first or second result. And you do have to ask to join so that we know that you're not a robot. And I love that group. It's one of my favorite groups on Facebook of all time. And also, I'm on Twitter as Brandywine12. And I also have a podcast with my husband called the Dark Corner Podcast. And we release every other week, and we look at the world and pop culture from a darker perspective. And there is a lot of swearing. So it is not for children or people who don't like swearing.
Excellent.
Well, I guess there won't be swearing on the edge.
I'm very good at not swearing when I put my mind to it.
Okay, because you're right there on the edge. Anyway.
Yes. What about you, Bruce?
You want to know where you can find me? Okay. Well, you can also find me in the Babel Conference, and obviously Isaac won't be in there because he is a robot, and we don't let robots in. And racist.
We get to be the racist.
Yeah,
so, no, that's not good.
No. Anyway.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See, she's already getting in trouble. And then you can find me on Twitter at Admiral_Rex. And I'm also here on the Trek FM network hosting literary treks about the Star Trek books and comics with Dan Gunther. And that comes out almost every week. We take 1 week off just so we can keep reading. And you can also find me on the Star Wars Report as producer and occasional co-host. And, of course, we talk Star Wars on that podcast. And I think that's, and where else I'm ever floating on Trek FM, that's where you'll find me.
Cool. And you can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K, and you can also find me on my own website, commentarytrackstars.com, doing a show called Commentary Track Stars, and you can find me on thenerdparty.com doing a show called Great Shot Kid, and you can find me right here on Trek FM doing a show called Stage 9. And like I said, this week on Friday we are going to be discussing the Orville from a more behind-the-scenes perspective and kind of a look at the various Star Trek people who are working on it. All right. Well, thank you very much, Brandi and Bruce, for coming on today. We can't wait to see what you guys have in store for us every Sunday night. And we will be back next week with a new episode of The Edge.